Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we will be starting from Shaar Aleph, Parak Daled, Parak Daled. V'hinei hayaseder giluya v'asher ba'atzilus meshuar u'mechuvan b'chol inyaneihem b'mida u'b'mishkal lefi seder teitza'as habiyah sheratz l'hoitzi al yedeihem. Now, when it comes to the preparation of the revelations that will take place in Atzillus, which is the point at which HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name and his essence, so to speak, that is mislabish in his name, is fully active and present. Meshuar mechuvan b'chol inyaneihem b'midu b'mishkal, that the entire planning and measurement and estimation and intention of all of the things that are revealed in Olam HaAtzilus and all of their particularity, their weight, their measure, lefi seder toitza'as habiyah sheratz l'hoitzi al yedeihem. The whole thing is in order for and based on the outgrowth in the worlds of Bria, Yitzir, and Asiyah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu desired emerge from the world of Atzilus. Meaning the soif masav machshav tchila. The tachlis is what's going to emerge from Atzilus, the sharashim of Bia. Ki hine kol osan hagiluyim asher ba'atzilus hinehem atzmam hasharashim ha'ikarim da'elamas Bia. Because in truth, all of those revelations that are going to emerge, and all of those partsufim and worlds that emerge in the world of Atzilus, hinehem atzmam hasharashim ha'ikarim da'elamas Bia. They themselves are in truth the essential root of all of the outgrowths that are going to take place in Bria, Yitzir, and Asiyah. So the purpose of the Gilui in Atzilus is for that which will emerge in the worlds of Bria, Yitzir, and Asiyah. And not only that, but what emerges in the worlds of Bria, Yitzir, and Asiyah is in truth rooted in the world of Atzilus itself. This applies in the most general principles of the relationality between Atzilus and the worlds of separation, which for our purpose means HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence in our lives versus the apparent absence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all of the synonyms that go along with that distinction. This is true in the general principles and the particulars, that it is all rooted in and the purpose of the world of Atzilus. V'noidahu, and it's known, ki b'chol shayresh hine mesudar bol kol koichaisav v'tchunoisav rak lefi inyanei toldos ha'anaf v'ha'pri shenimshach v'yotzim mimenu. And it's known, axiomatic, says the Leshem Shabbat V'Chaleima, ki b'chol shayresh, at the root of all things, in everything's root, hine mesudar b'kol koichaisav v'tchunoisav rak lefi inyanei toldos ha'anaf v'ha'pri. That the arrangement of it and the formation and the essence of the root is only in accordance to the nature that is necessary for that which will grow out of it, for the anaf or the pri. Meaning the root is not the purpose, the outgrowth from the root is the purpose, and therefore the root is going to be determined and informed in the deepest way by that which stands at the ready to emerge afterwards. V'hu mashakasav b'zayar HaKadosh Parshas Pekudei, which is a profoundly counterintuitive concept. That the source should be informed by the emergence of that which has not yet even emerged from it. That the source is in truth an expression of the outgrowth from the source. It's an impossible thing, which leads us to the secret of unity. But the Leshem is rooting this, obviously, in the Zohar Kadosh and Parshas Pekudei, which the Arizal brings in the beginning of Eitz Chaim Kadisha. The Cholmad debara kudsha baruchu ba'al medain bara le kegavne de'leila. That the Zohar describes the uniformity or the connectivity, the reflective nature of above and below. That everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created ba'al madain, down here, barale kegavna de'leila, everything created down here is also created up there. Now, if we pay attention to the language of the Zohar, it is very much a proof to the counterintuitive nature that the Leshem is describing. The Zohar Kadosh is saying is that everything down here has an example above. Not that everything above has an example down here. It's backwards. It's a Olam Hafel, you see. The Elyon is totally in the Tachton here. Everything that is created down here is reflected above. This is what you see in Kigavna. In Kigavna, the beautiful tefillah, which ultimately says that down here is just like above. Above is unity and down here is unity. And not only that, but it's not unity above until it's unity down here. You're like, wait, what? I'm a reflection of above, but above is not itself until I reflect it. And this is the secret of Avodah L'Sarach Kavoah, of the fact that Kavyachol, on a certain level, HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Elyonim are in need, so to speak, of the Avodah of Klal Yisrael itself. That the Avodas Hashem and existence that we have plays much more of a fundamental and central role in the very fabric of the entirety of existence than we assume. And the Zohar continues, V'chol inin gvanin de la'ela itkin loin l'tata l'mehevei alma da b'diyukna da alma de la'ela le'izdavka le'iskasha alma ba'alma. And here the Leshem is using the reverse. He's showing it's the reversed position, but the Zohar Kadosh is saying both, because from above to below and from below to above. The first Zohar Kadosh is saying that up there is a reflection of down here. The second language of the Zohar is saying is that down here is a reflection of up there. And so the Zohar says as follows. It says, V'chol inin gvanin de la'ela, and all of these colors, called gvanin de la'ela iskin loin latata, are also arranged down there, lemeheve alma da b'diyukna da alma de la'ela, so that this world down here is in the image or the reflection of the world up there, is davka is kashra alma ba'alma. And the uniformity of the levels has to be in order for there to be a connectivity and a connection of one world to the next. The Zohar Kadosh says, there's nothing in this world that does not have a counterpart or an example in the upper worlds. So it's using both Lashonos in this Zohar. Right, so there's two Lashonos we saw in Parshas Pekudei. One says that above is dependent on below. One says that below is dependent on above. And then the next source text that Leshem brings, which is the Zohar in Parshas Tetzaveh, brings both svaras. There's nothing down here that does not have an example above. Right, so you see a person could mamish be medayik between a dibor and a gavan. That a gavan is something that is less real, less tangible. Gavan is a color, it's a hue. Heichal hagvanim hamistagmin. Dugma davar is more of like a davar. It's more of a mitzias. So in terms of the mitzias is more magushim down here. So the davar is totally down here back to above. So it's up there like it is down here. With regards to the gavanin, which are less graspable and more refined and abstract, so then down here is in reflection to above, I think one can say. So why is this all? What's this rooted in? And the purpose for all of this is because the root of the existence of all of the worlds of separation and their general properties as well as their particularities and all of their arrangements and the processes that they go through. That which is related to themselves, and all of the events and the historical iterations that take place in and through the worlds of separation. The root of all of this is in the world of Atzillus. And it's specifically from there, the world of Atzillus, that it is drawn into the worlds of separation. And furthermore, like we said, the worlds of separation are themselves the revelations of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world of Atzillus. That in and through the world of Atzillus, which is reflected in the very essence of the worlds of separation, is how HaKadosh Baruch Hu expresses himself in order to govern the world perpetually. V'heim heim shemoisav, and the worlds of separation are the names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu themselves, Kaviyachol Yisparach Shemo, which we discussed as being the loftiest roots of existence. The emergence of the potential of HaKadosh Baruch Hu into actuality for the sake of being called by a name. What the Leshem is saying is that very system and a fractal nature of things is reflective down to the lowest iteration of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. The Leshem will always, we're going to see, whenever he's this radical, he's always going to counterbalance it with a deep sense of rationality that kind of tapers and sobers up the intense ramifications of what he's saying. And thereby the Leshem very delicately holds this very central pillar of both ideas, both the fact that the worlds of separation are nothing but Atzilus, which would have a profound impact on how we view the reality of things, but also never taking it too far as to say that this worldliness doesn't exist or anything along those lines. And the Leshem gives us both options and allows them to dance kind of together. But you see what the Leshem is saying right here is a profound thing, that everything a person sees in the worlds of Bria, Yitzir, and Asiya are ultimately the very expressions of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world of Atzilus, which would mean, if the halachos of the world of Atzilus is that the infinite presence of godliness is ever present, just as it was prior to the emergence of the worlds, then that would be the same halacha, if you will, in the worlds of Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya, which is a profoundly powerful statement, which the Leshem comes to push back against and to kind of refine. So we see this very often, the chug, the chasadim and the gevuros of the Leshem Shvo V'Chaloma operating in once. The chasadim of the Leshem is to say everything that needs to be said, and to go all the way, to go as far as one can possibly fathom, even to that point where you can't even imagine how it could be real. But also the gevura of the Leshem is to always hold back and retain the balance of the ideas in a very delicate way so that the ink remains on the page, so to speak. And you see there are moments where the Leshem loses himself, and in later years the Leshem's life, you see mamish leshonos of Simpson, Kipshuto, and different ideas. But it's very powerful to see the way that the Leshem balances these things.
What's the deeper meaning of the Heim Shemosa V'Yisparach Shema? Meaning in after Atzillus, we find different names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu associated with Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya.
Bivadai, different shemos.
Each one reflects a different element of
Tzimtzum, right? The world of Bria corresponds to the Shem Kel Shakai, and the world of Yetzira corresponds to the Shem Kel Hashem, and the world of Asiya is Kel Adnus. That these are all names and appellations that are emergent from the Shem HaEtzem, which we just described in the previous prakim. The Shem HaEtzem is everything. It's the source of all of reality. It manifests itself lower in the Seder Ishtalshalos and Zer Anpin, the Atzillus, which is Teferes and Torah. So that's just the power of Torah. But in truth, the Shem Havaya is the source of all things. It's the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Mahava the entire Bria. And so these shemos, as they are in Atzilus, in their essential form where it's impossible that the name is both written and not written. It's both not the infinite, but also completely subsumed by the infinite. It's the Raz D'Meim Nusa. What the Leshem seems to be implying is that Heim, the Giluyim in Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, they're not just reflective of the Shem Havaya in the world of Atzilus, where one can say this is a sign that is stamped from that. But rather, they are a further iteration of the very same substance, so to speak, that was emergent in the world of Atzilus. Do you hear the chiluk? It's a hamshacha as opposed to there's no dilug, there's no splitting between the worlds of Atzilus and Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya here.
So what differentiates between these four olamas?
So we're going to see. So here the Leshem, like I was saying, it's a very powerful, what one would infer here is that there's less of a separation than we tend to assume. But then, and then he's going to counter it with the Pargud, right? And then he's going to counter it with the Mesach, meaning the Leshem's not saying anything that Arizal didn't say, but this is really the balancing act of the entire system of the Arizal. How there's difference while there's really no difference, and how both can operate at once. It's easy to say there's no difference, and all difference is a joke. That's not what the Leshem is saying. That's not what the Arizal is saying. He says difference exists, but it doesn't negate the indifference of the infinite.
When you're saying there's no difference, you're saying really bad sense. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is found in all of these places. Right? So then why do we say that there's a difference? Because from our perspective.
So Avada, our perspective, everything is our perspective.
Right.
That's always the answer.
Yeah.
But within our perspective, there's still our perspective of what it would theoretically mean to view things from his perspective, so to speak. Right? Like there has to be, everything is always our perspective. So the Soivev Kalalman Mitzido Yisparach, that the Nefesh HaChaim speaks so powerfully about, and the different tzaddikim speak about, Avada, that's still Mitzidenu. The Gans Klal of everything is Emunah Kipshuta, like a child, that when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu Chada V'atzma, we have no hasaga b'chlal. There's a shlila sashlila, the negation of negation. And so here, within what is graspable to us, there's still a graspable element of what's ungraspable.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Correct me if I'm thinking about this incorrectly. It sounds like this is like, well, there's a DNA, as it were, and as it manifests itself in these different modes, so then it's going to manifest differently. But it's the same DNA.
Exactly.
It's the same,
exactly.
It's the same root.
It's the same root.
And that's how you can have the pre is already there from the beginning.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's just
exactly. And it's I don't know if there was a moment where I thought I would try and understand stem cell to from a Wikipedia level to understand this. right? Because stem cells seems to, and I could be totally wrong on this, but the Arizal asks this question. The Arizal asks this very question. I believe it's the Leshem that's maybe even brought in the Ramak, where it says, okay, so we have this formation of this Adam Kadmon, the body, right, the shape, Kavyachol, of the infinite shapelessness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let's reflect on the human body. If it's all the same, then why is an eye an eye, and an arm an arm, and a leg, and a navel a navel? Meaning, if it's all rooted in a singular source, then how does differentiation emerge without negating the undifferentiated source? To hold the rope at one end is not a problem. You can either say everything is real and removed from the infinite, or everything is illusory and completely subsumed by the infinite and it bears no existence. The unique, impossible middle path of what defies the laws of non-contradiction, which is the roots of kind of Greek wisdom and the laws of non-contradiction, Pnimius HaTorah is not only denying the law of non-contradiction, it's nesting the very kernel of itself at that point, meaning at that balancing act between the sameness and the change. That makes sense?
Could you say that the shemos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu are like the DNA strands? The unraveling or the
It's Avadai, from a Hasidus perspective, absolutely. Everything is Shemus, meaning Shaar Yichud Ve'emunah. Everything is Osios. Everything is Osios. Every Mitzias is a different shame to be Mityached. And the engagement, meaning, does that mean to contemplate the name by way of mikveh, meditation, breath, silence? And in our generation, I think it's possible, but I mean, it means also being in that moment. That's also like the shemos of the moment is also like feet on the ground, walking. That's how I understand it. I mean, in the Klal Gadol is that if the words of the tzaddikim mean anything, they have to mean everything. Right? If there's a significance to them, if there's a value to them, then they breach any boundary. They go to the highest point and they go to the lowest point. And so the words of the Leshem Shmuel V'Chalom and the words of the Arizal and the words of all the tzaddikim.
Go back to the Shaar already. Everything is in the Shemos.
Everything goes back to the Shemos and the Shaar, but I mean, but even before that, I mean, what does it mean to engage with the Shemos? What does it mean? Does it mean now to sit and learn the principles of contemplation and Shaar Yechudim of the Arizal, and to contemplate Shem Havaya or Shavisi Hashem Lenegdi Tamid? Or does it mean also to just be a little bit more aware in one's encounter with reality on a regular basis? That's also engaging with Shemos. And that's my point in saying like that, it has to be the case. Because if that's what the Torah means for a person like myself, when learning about what the Leshem is saying, it's giving different ways of engaging with reality rather than attempting to be a Kabbalist.
Seeing different Havas of Kosh in our lives according to the...
It's the application and the value of these teachings are what one finds in the teachings. I believe that's the emes eid la'atzmo, is that the words of the tzaddikim run from the highest level down to the lowest level. So when the tzaddikim are talking about contemplation of shemos, it means, what does it mean that every encounter with the world, when the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh says that if this table is really Shin, Vav, Lamed, Ches, Nun, and I'm an Aleph, Daled, Mem, because I'm an Adam, and that there's this unification of letters or energy sources or whatever it means. So that can mean a transcendental idea or a contemplative, meditative stance, but it could also mean I find myself in this world. I find myself thrown into this world, experiencing life as a human being in all of its vicissitudes and all of its tzimtzumim and all of its, Klal Gadol is that all the tzaddikim are announcing to us over and over is that you are at the lowest possible point. Like that's why you're at the bottom. Like you are here. And that's where the information is coming down to us. That's Klal Gadol. Number one is that life is life and this world is this world. And I think, it's a bit tangential, but for the value of the words of the tzaddikim, at least I can only speak for a person like myself, is that they offer the therapeutic salve to the individual wherever they are, whether or not you're osek in Yechudim with Shemos or you're osek with Yechudim and just being present in that moment. That makes sense?
And yet being at the lowest, we're reflecting what's above, and above is reflecting
Avada, and it's also meaning das is das also, right? Like the lowest point is
the highest point.
When the bottom
So
drops
I
out.
was asking about different Hagas.
Yes.
So are you saying on a level of self-reflecting, seeing it, or just living and then
It's an amazing question. It's an amazing question, and I think from a textual perspective, it goes. I believe that there's textual evidence that allows for us to say that the therapeutic narrative that one cultivates from the teachings and the comfort that it allows one to have in the day-to-day, moment-to-moment experience of life in 2023 is as valid a reading as any other reading historically. And I don't even think there has to be textual evidence. It's like this is when a person is dying, right? You're not asking how the medicine is working. I have to when a person finds themselves in a world where you can't survive without Pnimius HaTorah, then however Pnimius HaTorah works, it works. It does its job. I think. I don't know. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Totally wrong.
So how about the Moroccan who sits there reading Zohar and doesn't understand?
That's the high. Well, it's a high level. Refroman would say that halavai should be zocha to sit with the people. Say there. Back to the Leshem. V'mishum shesherish kol hametzias asher b'chol ha'olam yisbiyah b'chlal u'b'prat v'chol sidrim v'taluchoseyim hem ma shenoigel le'atzmusam ha'ikariim kol mikreim shenasa b'hem nishorish kol ha'dvarim hu ha'kol ba'atzilus u'misham nimshach b'hem v'hem hem gilui v'yisparach shemo asher ba'atzilus shebem hu mahave ha'kol manigas ha'kol tamid v'hem hem shemoyse v'yisparach shemo shehem ha'sherashim ha'rishonim v'ha'koiches p'nimim shakol ha'briya kula v'chol tze'etze'eha, that they are the original roots and the hakolchos hapnimim, and the inner strength or the inner power of everything that's going to emerge afterwards. Shekol habriya kula v'chol tza'atze'eha, that the entirety of creation and all of the outgrowths of creation, b'chol ma shena'aseh ba b'chol eis, in all that is taking place in it, in every single moment, the perpetual movement of experience. Shakol hu mimenu v'hu giluya v'shemoisav, that all of it is from him and it is his revelation as well as his name. K'may shekasev lefi ma'asai ani nikra, meaning to say that lefi ma'asai, in accordance with how I will manifest, so to speak, in the worlds of separation, in the worlds of creation, is going to be reflected in the names that I am called.
I don't mean to open up Pandora's box, but when he says b'chol ma shenasa ba b'chol eis shakol hu mimenu v'hu giluyav, we're taking away b'chira chavshis, or he's talking about.
So we'll get there. We'll get there. Meaning b'chira is a fundamental, but not because it makes sense. Amnanhu, however. Right, so he's gonna walk back now. It's amazing. Amnanhu, however, kihine hagam she'amarnu shekol hagiluyim halalu hine hu ma shenaskala atzmuso gufa behem al yedei ha'atzilus, that even though we just said that all of the revelations that are revealed in the worlds of separation are he himself, so to speak, which is revealed through the world of Atzilus. And we also stated, not like a long time ago, like the last line, right, that all of the holy names that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is called by through the world of Atzilus, he himself is engarbed, so to speak, in them and nothing else. And if the names are revealed in the worlds of Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya, and the names are the expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's essence, then the equation would be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's essence is also revealed in those worlds of separation. And even though we already said that all of those revelations in the world of Atzilus and their expression in Bia, and all of the koiches ha'ikarim, they're the potential and the strength of the upkeep that carry existence and being in its entirety. V'chol mikreha, and all of its events, v'chol milu'ayim, and all of their fullness, mereishis olam habriya ad soif tachtas ha'asiya, from the rooted heights of the world of Bria down to the bottom of olam ha'asiya. Like we said, all of these things are the names, are the revelations, are the expression of atzmus yisparach kavyachol as it's mislabish in the world of Atzilus. Hine im kol zeh, nevertheless, Ein lanu v'loy l'shum nivra shum tfisa v'hasaga b'mahus eize giloy mikol oisan hagiloyin kulam. It's true. It's avada true. But we have absolutely and not only us, but there is no creation. That is any tfisa, which is a grasp, v'hasaga, or an understanding, b'muhus eze giluim michol oisan hagiluim kulan. That there is no mind that is capable of grasping the essence of any of these revelations.
In other words, the Atzillus Shaar.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Elarak betzuras ha'oisios v'hanekudos betzirav ha'tagin v'atamim asher b'chol ha'shemos ha'kadoshim kefi ma shenimsar lanu b'chsav u'balpeh. What we have the ability to grasp is not the muhus, ever. We have the ability to grasp the form and the shape of the letters and the vowelization points in combination with the crowns of the letters as well as their cantillation points, which are expressed in all of these various holy names in the way that they were given over to us in the written Torah and the oral Torah. Aval zulas tsuras hashemos, but beyond the shape of these names, the shape of Hashem's expression, so to speak, ein lanu v'loy l'shum nivra shum hasaga v'tfisa b'muhus eze giluy michol giluy of mu'maklal. Not us and nothing that is created, meaning nothing other than God, so to speak, has any absolute hasaga on the essence of any of them, whatsoever. And so what the Leshem is telling us, that it's true, it's ever present. But that's a din in Metzius and not a din in Hasaga. One has no grasp of them. So let's see. And this interdiction, this impossibility of knowing the mohus of any of it, is also rooted in the reason that we said before. Kikol oisan hagiluyin kulam asher mashuhu atzmo yisparach shemoi nizgala lehem. That all of those giluyim are the very giluyim that he himself, so to speak, is revealed in. HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself through the world of Atzillus, through the Shem Havaya. And even though we have no access to Atzmus Yisparach Bechlal, nevertheless, B'Ritzoynei HaPashut, and in the impossible Razad Ne'emnusa, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mislabesh that within the Giluyim in the world of Atzillus. And that's why no human being can grasp Atzillus Bechlal, because Chvaydo V'Atzmo Kavyachol is mislabesh b'hem. And when Chayda Yiva'atma Kavyachol is mislabesh, then that place of Olam Atzilus takes on the very din of Chayda V'atzmusi Yisparach, which is Meshul HaSaga.
So what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, and no
B'vadai.
person can see me and
B'vadai.
live.
B'vadai.
This is a din in Metzius, as it were. Like it's only because we are here, as it were, that we can't understand the other olamot, as it were. Like we don't.
But why can't we understand the other olamot? Because the other olamot are what we would identify with HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Right.
The Nivra cannot be Masek the Bayra. And the Olam HaAtzilus is where we associate with the deepest ability of our minds to understand what the Bayra is.
So now we see there is some kind of a separation between that one and here, because we can understand this.
But it's not an absolute separation.
It's like
It's not a removal.
It's a virtual type of.
It's an awareness thing.
Like the light
Kavyachol.
comes from
Mashu kaseh. Meaning it's the roots. It's the roots of. I mean, this is the radical. We'll see. The Leshem speaks for himself, but this is the radical nature of it. So it's yeah.
I'm missing it. There's
Okay.
something else because I guess
So say.
I'm having trouble. There is some sort of hasaga. There is some sort of space here.
There's a hasaga of what you can't have hasaga of.
You say there's not. So
There's no hasaga, meaning it's what it's referred to as, and Baal Tanya utilizes this as well, and it's from the Meira, which is it's Yedias HaMetzias versus hasaga samhus, a knowledge of an existence versus a grasp of the essence.
So you think that would fit?
We have a knowledge of existence. No, Leshem's going to use this exact lashon in this parak or the next.
Okay.
These few prakim are mamish. You could be medam and milsal to Baal Tanya.
Was there a hush?
No, I mean, no, the Leshem was mamish. I mean, yes, because they're both coming from the same place in Metzius, but no, but the Leshem was not learning Hasidus. Leshem is not learning Hasidus. Leshem is The Leshem is the light. No, the Leshem is the light of all of the tzaddikim. The Leshem, the Gra is the light of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov is the light of the Gra. The Leshem is Mekusher B'Tachlis. There's not one area where there's actually going to be real fundamental discrepancy. There's a shifting of language, which is never only semantics, and there's different points of intensity, but there's no machlokas when it comes to Ikari Hadas. There can't be. To think otherwise is a shayresh of... It's what? It's pardes. But it's a pardes that's mamish like all the same it's different expressions of the same thing as opposed to expressions of different things. But so certainly spooky action at a distance in terms of influence, like certainly influence, but non-local influence. Adrabah, the Leshem was, there's a legitimacy to referring to the Leshem Shavachloim as the camp of the Vilna Gaon, as not a misnaged, because it was not a hisnagdus, but the Leshem was a Giloy.
So going back to the last point that you made, it's kind of like the drop of water can know that there's an Indian called the ocean, but it doesn't see itself necessarily as the ocean.
So it's a vada. It's a wonderful mashal. The mashalim will see. The Leshem is not in Lubavitch, for example, in Tanya or Likutei Torah. You're going to find when you learn the Mittler Rebbe talking about the same ideas, thousands of mashalim, different mashalim that are makariv the Indian to the seichel. Mashalim of the tzur and the chalamish and the spark that is contained in the flintstone and the light that is contained in the ma'or and the name that is contained in the person who carries the name. And there is an Indian, you don't find that in the Vilna Gaon and in the Talmidim of the Vilna Gaon. And part of that, especially in the Leshem, has to do with, what the words of the Arizal were. The Leshem is being makariv the words of the Arizal to the Seichel with the words of the Arizal. There's no need to demetaphorize the words of the Arizal in order to come to what the Arizal is trying to say to us. The Leshem is engaged, I don't want to call it this, but we can call it a polemic with certain interpreters of the Ramchal in his generation. He doesn't bring up Hasidus. That's not because he agreed with Hasidus necessarily. I don't think he touched Hasidus. Meaning, I don't think it was like something he would necessarily, want somebody bringing into his house. He was a Talmud of the Vilna Gaon, and he was a neshama that came from a different time.
Must have been aware.
He was very aware. He was very well aware, but he was also not interested. But over here, so you're not going to see the mashalim. That mashal you're bringing up is a wonderful mashal, but the Leshem is saying, we don't have to abstract the metaphors necessarily. The words that we have is what the idea is, as we're going to see. But it is. All of those mashalim are 100% true. Let's go weiter. Masha anu kairu maisam b'shem giluyim shahayrasam hu shemusag v'nitfas. We are calling it giluyim. The implication is that it's something that can be grasped and understood. Hu b'shnei inyanim. Okay, so how can we call them giluyim if they're not really giluyim? Because we have no grasp of them, and giluy implies that something is graspable. So we can answer that up in two reasons as to why they're still called giluyim. Asher shayrasham echadu, but in truth, those two reasons are rooted in a singular reason. Hanu aleph, the first one, meaning that even that reasoning is so, the Leshem is saying there's two things, but really the two things are rooted in one. But it doesn't just go to the root one. He goes through both, which seemingly are separate, and then shows how they're both unified. Hanu aleph ki hinehem nikra giluyim rak mitzad mitziusam v'lo mitzad musam. They're giluyim because we just said it's yediyas hamitzias and not hasagas hamohus. So they're revealed to us in the nature of the fact that they exist, but they're not revealed to us in existence by the essence of themselves. Because their essence is in truth concealed in all matters of concealment. All matters of concealment doesn't mean, if I just dig hard enough, I'll come to understand. If I work hard enough, it means they're fully removed from the capacity of human grasp, which is why the Leshem says we specifically learn their ungraspability from Moshe. If it was anybody else, we'd be like, they're not good enough. But Moshe was revealing a law in Metzias. But we have an understanding in the worlds of Bria Yitzir Asiya of these Giluyim because we know of their existence based on the extrapolation that we can make, based on what we see in front of our eyes down here through the Hanhaga and the way Hashem reveals himself down here. We know it exists. We don't know what it is. We don't know how it functions in Atzillus. We don't know how Hashem reveals himself to us in this world and how this world is rooted in Hashem's expression. But we know that it has to exist somehow. And this is like the Kaddish Hashem, I believe it was from Chasidei Ashkenaz in the Shir Yichud Yom Hey. We did not find you, nor did we know you, but through your actions we came to recognize you. Meaning we know your Metzias, we don't know your Muhas. And that's still a Gilui. Like David Melech Mashiach said, Hashemayim Mesaprim Kvod Kel. That Shemayim tells of the praise, it speaks of the praise of Kel. Meaning that existence beckons our mind to come to realize that there must be something. Very similar to Avram Avinu's way of being Miskarev to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'chein b'mizmor kaftalid Hashem Elokai gadaltem oid v'chulei v'chulei. All of these psukim representing the ability to see the maisim of Hashem through this world. What? Exactly. Right, that's true. The mashalim he brings are psukim, Torah Shebechsav, which is also very much the anhag of the Gra, to bring everything back to Torah Shebechsav. Ukamohu rabim. Ubeprat ba'anagasa yisparach shemo b'chol anisim aniglim v'anastarim b'chol ha'oiris kulam asher miyoyim bara Hashem adam al ha'aretz ad hayom hazeh. And furthermore, the fundamental place where we can see HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Anhaga is in all of the miracles that are revealed or concealed. Again, he's describing the functionality of all things as being rooted in miracle, like the Ramban says in Parshas Bo. The only difference is some will be revealed and some will be concealed, as well as all of the events in their totality. From the day HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world until this day. The Leshem does this very much, and he goes to great lengths to say, Ad hayom hazeh, Ad harega hazeh, Ad haben adam hazeh. Meaning that when we're talking about the grand story, we're as much a part of it as Adam HaRishon was. Exactly. Ein adam loimed el b'mashali b'chafetz. The heart demands something. The heart is asking for something, and that's what a person is going to see. Ad shekol echad roya be'einav mamish. Ubeprat b'Yisrael amal b'yichud b'klal b'prat, and specifically with the Jewish nation in their general capacity as well as the individual. Ad shekol echad roya be'einav mamish. To the extent that each and every person could see with their own eyes, like the pasuk says, Atar is ladas ki Hashem Elokim eino ed mavada. So that's the first reason it could still be called a Giloi, even though we can't grasp the essence of what's taking place in the world of Atzillus. But from the world of Biyah, from the place of separation, even though we already said that the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mislabish down here, nevertheless, we don't have a grasp of it. So the first reason it's called a Giloi is because we have a Giloi of its Metzias, its existence is revealed to us, in spite of the fact that we have no grasp of its essence.
Is the name Elokim in bold in yours also?
Yeah, the Leshem wrote this. The Leshem, again, it goes back, we spoke about the textuality of the Leshem, but the Leshem would be Toivel before he made his ink, and in his own Ksav Yad, you see the embolded names.
So is there a significance to the Shem?
All of the names. All the names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, B'dar Klal, in the Leshem Shovach Loma's writings are bolded. It's because that's the Hagufa is the avoid of the Leshem. The writing itself is a yichud. The conveying of the Torah down is the yichud.
And the name Elokim he uses here?
Over here it's just a Chasuv Atares Ladaski Hashem Elokim means how we grasp HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mitzad HaTeva. Right, again, he's saying like I'm going to be forced to use words, right? He's saying, and now what is clear to us, that everything that has been mitzumsum and contracted and condensed and reduced, from our ability to grasp his amisasa and elama, the true concealment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like the Rambam writes in the beginning of Yesodei HaTorah. that Hashem Elokeichem Emes, it means that it's Mechuyev HaMetzias, that which exists independent of all other existences. It's the true of truth. That is completely Mishul Mikol Tfisas Machshava V'Yediyah Bo. V'nitztamt Teim L'Mokoim L'Ha'ilamos. And it removed itself, so to speak. Hashem removed himself, so to speak, so that there would be a place for the worlds. Uliyos Mahava HaKol. And to be that which gives life and creation to the worlds at every moment. V'hoive bakol. And to be present perpetually, eternally in each and every moment. Shehu hein b'chol atzmusam. V'hein b'chol mekrayim kanal. Shehu hein b'chol atzmusam. Lios mahava hakol, v'hoive bakol, shehu hein b'chol atzmusam. I don't know how to translate that. Shehu hein b'chol atzmusam, that he is them in all of their essence, so to speak. Meaning the Giloy and the source of the Giloy are ultimately just kind of two sides of the same expression, Kaviyachol.
Hashem is manifest.
Yeah, it's a delicate, this Mineu Bey type of Lashon is, meaning it's a delicate one. Ve'hein b'chol mikreihem u'knizka la'el. And in all of their unfoldings. This is the Totzah of the Tzimtzum. Hine ro'i l'kroi oisam heitiv b'shem giluyim. So we can obviously call them giluyim. Because we're aware of them. They're known to us. Right? That he's saying, like, Leshem is saying, yes, you can extrapolate from reality the fact that there exists this infinite, impossible power in the world of Atzillus, and we know of its existence. But the Leshem also said, not only do you need the raya from the Psukim, because ultimately each and every person can see this with their own eyes. And then the raya that the Leshem brings is that you can see it with your own eyes. Asher haris ladas. Amnan kol giluyim hem rak biyadiyah v'le ba'asaga. We know them, but we don't grasp them. Shu rak b'mitziusam v'le b'mehusam k'nizka le'el. And it's only in terms of their existence and not their essence. V'chol zehu atam v'inyan echad ma she'anu kainu mesam b'shem giluyim. And this is the first reason why we are still capable of calling the revelations of Atzmus Yisbrach Kaviyachal in the world of Atzilus, as they express themselves in the world of separation, why we can call them Giluyim, even though we have no grasp of them whatsoever. We have a grasp of their existence, but not their essence. Ach inyan hasheni bazeh, what's the second reason? Hinehu be'emes karuv kimat loimer shehim Giluyim mamish gam ba'asag v'tfisa chushis. Right, he's going to speed up here. And really, if we're honest, there's another way of looking at this as to why we could call them Giluyim, and that's because in truth, it's Karuv Kimat Loimar, right? We can almost come to say, Shehim Giluyim Mamish, that in truth it's a true revelation to us, meaning Mashmos is Hasaga Samuhus, Gam Hasaga V'tfisas Chushis. And here he's introducing, the Leshem seems to be introducing a distinction between Yediyah and Chush, and Chush, which is Mamish, a sense of it, which is, you see this expressed very often in Chassidus, right? And in spite of the fact that we can come so close to really saying that they're real Giluyim, even on the level of Hasaga Samuhus, nevertheless, when we come to that edge where we feel that no, be'emes, we can really be masig, Atzilus down here in the realist way, we'll come back and we'll revert back to that safer option of saying they're only Giluyim because we only know of their Metzias and not their Mahus. So the Leshem is setting up the safe zone. The safe zone is acknowledging that when it comes to the Hasaga of Atzmus Yisbarach as it's mislabish in the world of Atzilus, in the worlds of separation, that in truth it's not a true revelation or grasp, we know of its existence. But not only that, in truth we can also come to that place which should be impossible, which is absolute grasp. When you come to that problematic space where you're like, wait, so there really is no difference, then you revert back to what you said the first time, which is that no, still it's really just a Giloy. Because it's infinite. From a relative perspective, no matter how much I come to uncover, when I come to be masig, what I thought was asmus is revealed to me immediately that it's not. Because kedushasi l'malam mikdusha seichem. Exactly. Vim kol zeh hinehem be'emek rak me'oise inyan arishon she'atzmoi hainu ki hine amarnu le'el perak gimel shekol giluyev kulam hinehem atzmam kol hashem asakadoyishem animtzar lanu b'chsavu shebal peh. U'ba'amarenu bal peh. So let's go back a few lines. Meaning, in truth, it's still rooted in the first reason. V'hainu, what does this mean? Ki hine amarnu le'el in Parak Gimel. What we said earlier, what we said in Parak Gimel, is that shekol gilui of kulam hinehem atzmim kol hashemos hakadoshim hanimsar lenu b'chsav u'shebal peh. That the revelations of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world of Atzillus are in and of themselves the names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that are conveyed to us by way of Torah Shebechsav and Torah Shebal Peh. Uba amirenu bal peh, what do we mean when we say Torah Shebal Peh? Right, Salaymer, meaning we have the Shemos Shebilti Nimchakim, right, that Chazal tell us they're the names that are associated with the Sfiros, and some of them in that we find in Torah Shebechsav. What do we mean bal peh with regards to Shemos? Right, Salaymer, kol ha-Shemos ha-muvuar medivrei chachmei emes. All of the Shemos that are found amongst the Mekubalim. Here, there's a grand history of Shemos, and the process of Shemos goes back to Kabbalah Saga'oinim. It goes back already, the Arizal brings in Shaar Kalim, in Eitz Chaim, and then there's also the names of Malachim and Inyanim like that. There's different names in Yichudim. And they emerge from different permutations of letters within the Torah. Right? Shem Ayin Beis, Shem Mem Beis, Shem Chaf Beis. Imrosh Tevos, Osofei Tevos, Om Mechatzian, V'chein Gam Mechilufa Osios B'chola Alphabetin, Deresh Lamed Aleph Sha'arim Kanoida Levai Said Hashem. So here the Leshem is hinting to what we're going to discuss Bezras Hashem when we get to Shaar HaPoin HaKadim at the end of HaKadosh, which is the Kabbalah of Mahari Sarug, which we discussed in the Hakdama, who was another Talmud of the Arizal, who spoke of worlds even higher than Atzillus and Adam Kadmon, which were the worlds of the Torah HaKaduma, or the Tzirufei Osios. Exactly as the Ramban told us in the beginning of his introduction to the Torah of Amar Sham, and he says over there, that the entirety of the Torah is the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's also expressed in the Zohar HaKadosh, and we've already said that all of the names are in and of themselves, the revelations themselves, meaning again, it's the same trajectory, that the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kivyachol is folded in, so to speak, to the Giluyim in the world of Atzilus. And not only that, but the Giluyim in the world of Atzilus are themselves the names that are going to be expressed lower down. With regards to the Esther Sfiros of Atzilus, describing the impossible unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's essence within them, in spite of the fact that they're not his essence, the Bohu is Chazei Malka Kadisha v'inun Shamay v'hu inun hu Shmei d'chsiv ani Hashem hu Shmi v'hu v'Shmei Chadhu. Again, the Zohar HaKadosh says everything that the Arizal is coming to tell us. The Bohu is Chazei. In this world of Atzilus, HaKadosh Baruch Hu can be grasped. It's Chazei Malka Kadisha. One can grasp HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One can, Chazei, see it. V'inun Shmei. What does it mean to grasp HaKadosh Baruch Hu? It means to grasp His name. V'hu inun, and He is His name. Hu Shmei, He is His name. D'chsiv, as the pasuk says, Ani Hashem Hu Shmi. Hu v'Shmei Chadhu. His name and Him, they're one. V'chem Parshas Emor, Ilin Itre Malka Shuhem Hayud Sfiros Ta'atzilus, the crown of the king, Di'ihu Achid Behu v'Inun Bey, that He's unified in them and they're unified in Him. Inun Shmei v'ihu v'Shmei Milachadahu. They are His name and He and His name are one. Again, highlighting the fact that what we grasp in the world of Atzilus is the Atzmusis Baruch Kavyachol that is revealed in the world of Atzilus. But it's only through the world of Atzilus. A person who tries to grasp Chvaydi V'Atzma without the Torah, without Atzilus, is a Koifer Be'ikr. The Chiddush of Yadus is that we can only grasp the essence, so to speak, through the revelation of the Torah, as we're going to see.
Here he seems to be going back up.
He's going back up. He's going back up over here. Meaning, again, he's highlighting that this is like the second answer. This is still where we're saying that it is karov to be able to say that we have a giloi. Parshas Yisro, what? It's not saying karov, right? Right. But that in the Zohar Kadosh, Hu v'Shmei, over there's ways, meaning the Zohar Kadosh is Lav Dafka talking in the world of Atzilus. Hu v'Shmei, we know that you can abstract to the point that you have a Shem Havaya Ha'atzmi Kavyachol that's L'malam and Oisios that existed prior to the creation of the world. Meaning, so that's not, the Zohar Kadosh, yeah. But Parshas Yisro, and in Parshas Yisro, Daha Araisa Shamad Kudshbrichu Have V'Araisa Kula Shamachad, and we see that the Torah HaKadosh is one elongated name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the Torah is one singular name, Have Shmei Kadisha the Kudshbrichu Mamish. It's Mamish, the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Man de Zachi Ba'araisa Zachi B'Shmei Kadisha. One who learns the Torah is Zoichet to the name. Rav Yosi Aimer Ba'HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mamish Zachi. Mamish Zachi. This is the Baal Tanya's famous mashal that if you go and hug the king, and all you hugged was the garment of the king. Are you going to say you didn't hug the king? No, you hugged the garment of the king, which is the Torah HaKadosha. Rav Yossi Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mamish Zachi Daha Hu V'Shmei Chadhu. So we have all of these iterations again that imply the Giluyim and the Shemos are mamish the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let's finish off this paragraph. V'harilanu mikol zeh, and what we find from all of this, Shekol HaShemos HaKadoshim hineu masha atzmusa gufa niskala b'giluyim asher nishlabes b'Atzillus, that he, in his essence, so to speak, gufa, is revealed in these revelations and engarbed within the world of Atzillus. V'hu Mishum ki amisaso anela ma'atzmo nitztamstem u'mispashet v'shoichen ba'atzilus u'misyachid ba'biyichud otzam ad shenasis chadimo. And we find that he himself, so to speak, his essence, his amisaso anelama, is mitzumsum and expressed and rooted and resting within the world of Atzilus and unified with it in an immense yichud, a yichud otzum, to the extent that it becomes one, so to speak. Antu de afikas eser tikunin v'karinin len eser sirin begin de ant me legoi kolman de ifrish chad min chavaria me alin isrin is chashiv le ki'ilu afrishbach. And we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is unified b'tachlis hayichud with his giluyim. Why? The Tikkunei Zohar tells us, Antu de afikas eser tikunin, you are the one who revealed these 10 tikkunim. A tikkun is a sphera, it's a constricting element. The karinin le eser spirin, and you refer to them as the eser spheros. Ubegin de ant me legoi. And because you are the inner interiority of all of them, Melagoi, man de ifrish chad min chavayra mi'ilin eser, is chad shavlei ki'ilu ifrish bach. One who separates from one to the other is as if they're separating from you. V'chein b'parsha shlach al makadma v'chulei. And Parsha Shlach describes that upper world, the Yugan is begave, that is concealed there. Okay, and Be'ezras Hashem, we're going to continue. We'll give the proper amount of time in respect to the end of Parak Dalid, and we'll go weiter next week, Be'ezras Hashem.